Hello, and welcome to today's Textile Exchange webinar, co-hosted by PEFC, Explore How Sustainable Forest Management and Responsible Sourcing of MMCF Creates Lasting Value for the World's Forests. Today's presentation will be recorded and sent out to all registered participants and also will be posted on the Hub. We will have a Q&A portion throughout the presentation. You can type your questions into the question box on the webinar doc. Any unanswered questions will be answered afterward via email. Now on to Simone Seisel with Textile Exchange. Simone?
Thank you, Rose, and welcome everyone from all your wonderful home office places. Thank you for joining this webinar. I'm truly excited to have two experts from PEFC with us today. I'm very curious to also hear your questions. It's all about creating lasting value for forests with sustainable man-made cellulosic fibers, as we just heard. But first of all, let me remind you of the fact that this webinar is held under antitrust statement. So we would like to read that one out briefly to you. Next slide, please. So we convene the textile community and all the values, diversity of views, expertise and opinions, backgrounds and experiences. It is expected that members of this community will collaborate by sharing ideas, information and resources of publicly available information only and avoid discussions on price, strategic plans or other private and sensitive information. This is something we always should have in mind. Protecting forests, next slide please. Protecting forests and planting trees are one of nature's most effective carbon sequestration solutions. We hear that a lot. We hear a lot about nature-based solutions at the moment. And forests are crucial for protecting biodiversity, for the regulation of our climate and for clean water and healthy soils. They are home for many people and animals, including endangered and threatened species. But also forests serve as a regenerative feedstock for so many products. And the bio-based economy is growing fast. When we hear about local communities, especially in developing countries, we often see there is no other choice to make a living than illegally logging or burning forests, also to create homes or to gain farmland. Please, if you want to know more about, if you want to hear also more about the state of the world's forests, I can recommend the recording of our December webinar with Canopy as a co-host. And when we're thinking about certified forest feedstock, when we look at our preferred fiber and materials market report, we can see that about 40 to 50% of feedstock is certified forest feedstock. So still a big gap and lots to do. And especially when we ask our brands and retailers that participate in our benchmark, we hear that more than 2/3 of the countries of origin of the man-made cellulosic fibers are not known. So the traceability to the right to the forests is still often not giving. And today we will explore how sustainable forest management and responsible sourcing of MMCFs can create lasting value, with hearing more about the scope of the PEFC standard, the benefit, challenges, but also engagement with industry players and brands. There is the opportunity to put in your questions in the Q&A box. We will try and pick them up in our live Q&A or also in writing. So do send us your questions, please. And before handing over, let me also remind you, there is a second part webinar with the second forest certification scheme, FSC, that we have scheduled for February. So the date will also be shared. Next slide, please. So let's see who we have in the room today. We are joined by Julia Koslik, Marketing Officer at PEFC International, and Deepa Hingorani, Textile Sustainability Consultant at PEFC International, your hosts of Textile Exchange. I'm Simone Seisel, I'm Consultant Fiber and Materials, and Prana Pandey, Program Coordinator at Textile Exchange. And having said this, enjoy, make your notes, write down your questions, and let me hand over to Julia first.
Yes, thank you very much, Simone. Thank you for having me here today. Hello and welcome everyone. So today I will present to you how sustainable forest management creates lasting value for forests and supports responsible sourcing for MMCF. So first, let's discuss why the interest in forests is increasing. So next slide. There are multiple factors. Next slide, please. Thank you. There are multiple factors that challenge the health and vitality of a forest around the world. You can see some of the core ones listed here. I will not go in all the detail, but just here are a few facts. FAO and UN state that agriculture is estimated to be the proximate driver of around 80% of deforestation worldwide. Another fact, an area nearly twice the size of France was damaged by fire in 2015. We can clearly see that forests that are cleared for agriculture or destroyed for other purposes are no longer able to absorb carbon and provide vital ecosystem services. We go to the next slide. What I want to highlight is that at the same time, the forests, next slide, please. Thank you. Sorry, there is a I guess in my audio. So at the same time, the forests offer vast value to our planet. So on the environmental side, forests provide home for biodiversity. Also, did you know that forests filter around 75% of world's drinking water? Also, forests with its tree root system protect soil. Furthermore, forests provide a very important social economic contribution. Which make livelihoods from forests. Out of this, about 60 million of indigenous people almost wholly depend on forests for their livelihoods on a daily basis. Forests provide green jobs. And also, if sustainably managed, forests are a renewable source for a wide range of recyclable products. There are many applications for wood raw material. And in fact, I want to show you how in practice, companies optimize the use of wood resource. So if we go to the next slide, here is a practical example from one of the pulp and paper companies, right, where that shows that each part of the tree is used to create value products. So in this case, the trunk of the trees would go to the logs that would be used for sawn timber plywood used in construction, to about 60%. Another part of the trunk that is not suitable for logs would go to pulp to produce paper, packaging, MMCF, so roughly 25%. And the remaining elements of the tree, such as bark, branches, would be used for renewable energy. So in this way, we can see that sustainably grown wood raw material can be fully utilized in a valuable way. So going to the next slide and coming back to contributions of forests, a very important contribution is that forests help to mitigate climate change. And they do that through the 3S: sequestration, storage, and substitution. As you might know, tree can absorb up to 150 kilograms of CO2 a year. And trees also continue to store this carbon even after being transformed into a product. This means that forests can be managed for productive purposes and still play an important role in tackling climate change. Here's an example of PEFC certified area that is estimated to absorb around 315 million tons of CO2 a year. This is equivalent to roughly 30% of annual emissions from the global fashion industry. If we move forward, we can see that leading scientific and expert bodies, next slide, please. Sorry, next slide, please. Thank you. So here we can see that leading scientific and institutions such as FAO, UN, IPCC, they all conclude that sustainable forest management provides important solutions for climate change mitigation. Sustainable forest management creates long-term livelihoods, which reduces the extent of forest conversions, and also they provide a range of sustainable products that are required for bioeconomy. Next, please. At PEFC, we promote sustainable forest management. And in particular, the role of PEFC forest certification is to enable forest owners to provide evidence of sustainable forest management on the ground for a third-party certification. And additionally to that, we provide mechanisms for the market to trace and verify that forest-derived material come from certified sustainably managed forests. So the scope of forest certification is on the forest-derived materials, which then can be manufactured into a range of products. As you can see here, it can be from construction to paper, packaging, and fibers to textile. Next slide. And I'm very sorry for the delay. Most probably my internet connection is not at 100% this evening. So at PEFC, as I said, we work with sustainable forest management. And today there are over 320 million hectares of forest that are managed according to PEFC endorsed standards worldwide. There are over 1 million forest owners from small to large that have chosen PEFC certification to demonstrate their sustainable management. We're also global. There are 48 national forest certification systems under PEFC umbrella that all comply with PEFC stringent international requirements. And also for the market, that means that already today, over 20,000 companies in supply chain can use PEFC traceability mechanism to verify that the raw material really originates from sustainable source. If we go to the next slide, if we go to the next slide, there will be a map that will show you where PEFC forests are located. Yes, here in 49 countries in dark green. This is where PEFC forests are. In the light green and in yellow, you can see the areas or the countries that are in the process of developing their national standards in accordance with PEFC international requirements. So at the moment, PEFC has 75% share in the global certified forest area. And if we go to the next slide, it looks more specifically to the countries relevant to MMCF. Yeah. Thank you. So the countries where dissolving pulp is produced, we can see that there is a high share of PEFC certified forests. This means that there is increased supply availability of certified raw material, which is available at scale, which is certified and which is available for the MMCF value chain sourcing. Next slide, please. Now I'm going to talk to you, present to you how the PEFC certification model works. So certification, our model is robust. It provides independent, impartial, and transparent auditing. PEFC, so the role of PEFC, we are a standard setting body. We convene the expert multi-stakeholder working groups to develop and revise standards. We are also the custodians of the process. So we provide this clear and transparent guidance documents and stringent standards for the system to operate. So the second corner of this triangle is the certification bodies. They provide the audits, they do the audits, and they issue the certification. So this is their responsibility of the CBs. And there is a large number of CBs available locally that are accredited to provide PEFC certification. Also, the role of PEFC is to provide requirements for the CBs on the auditing process. We also provide them with expert training. What does the third corner of this triangle is the national accreditation bodies. They monitor the CBs, they issue them accreditation, as well as they provide accreditation for all PEFC standards. So this whole triangle system is based on ISO certification model. What it does, it ensures separation of auditing, monitoring, and standard setting to ensure impartiality and credibility. If we go to the next slide, speaking of credibility, PEFC system and PEFC standards have been many times assessed by independent organizations. Here, the two most recent ones that happened in 2020. The first one is from Dutch Public Procurement Office, so the Dutch government. They did a detailed assessment of PEFC international standards, but also a selection of PEFC national standards from so-called high-risk countries. So they've chosen Gabon, Russia, and Indonesia, and all of them have received a full scores. So that's for the standard setting, and standard system governments. Also in 2020, we received the highest ranking from the ASEAN assessment. So what they did, they assessed different agriculture and forestry standards in the context of responsible investment and how do they deliver and contribute to the livelihoods. So if we go to the next slide, great. So in the next slide, I just want to summarize, there are many standards and requirements under PEFC, but here are the two core ones: sustainable forest management and chain of custody certification. So one, SFM is for the forest owners. It provides an evidence of sustainable forest management. And then chain of custody is a mechanism to trace verified forest derived materials. And that's for the market, for the supply chain. So the next slide, let's look what PEFC requirements are for the sustainable forest management. So where everything starts. Yeah, we can click through the next slide as well. So just please note that there are over 80 requirements in international benchmark standard. Also, if you look into the national PEFC national standards, you can find more additional requirements that are specific to the local forests and socioeconomic conditions. So here are just a few examples. First, forest conversions are not allowed. Forests cannot be converted into plantations, yet certification is possible to sustainable plantations, but only to those ones that are established on non-forest area. Also, there is a strong emphasis on conservation of biodiversity. For example, it is prohibited to exploit threatened and endangered plant as well as animal species. You need to protect and set aside ecologically important areas. Forest owners need to safeguard capacity of forests to store and sequester carbon. That means that for a PEFC certification looks at the important role of forests to mitigate climate change. Furthermore, there is also a list of requirements of socioeconomic requirements, such as fair and safe working conditions, respect of indigenous people rights. And also important one is about that is prohibited to use toxic pesticides in the forest. All right, so as you can see, if you go to the next slide, all those requirements are aimed to maintain the quantity, but more importantly, the quality of the forests and support rural livelihoods. So now let's look for the brands, how they can trace MMCF raw material and how they can ensure that it comes from sustainably managed forests. Next slide. So that's the PEFC solution is a chain of custody mechanism. And yes, it's a PEFC chain of custody mechanism to trace material from the forest until the finished product. And the next slide diagram will show you, and I will explain you how does it work. So it all starts with the forest, as I said, where sustainable forest management standard is applied. Once forest is PEFC certified, the material exits the forest. Let's say the first level of this product value chain, it's a pulp, dissolving pulp producer. So from here on forward, it's a chain of custody certification that applies. So what happens there is that every actor in this product value chain follows the same rules and principles of tracing certified material, what they buy in, and then they can sell it out as certified. They need to manage certain documentation, and each of them will be audited by the certification body through an annual surveillance audit. The auditor will come in to verify documentation, evidence that certified material is systematically identified at manufacturing facility. So what does it get? It's a traceability, you get third-party verification, and a consistent accountability at each step of the value chain. What that means, it eliminates the need, to retro-checking at the final stage of the value chain, as all the verification already took place at each step through a third party. Next slide. If you are a supplier, what I invite you to do is to look into full chain of custody standard, so international chain of custody standard from PEFC, and here are the key principles. So separation and identification of certified material. You have to have a system in place. Only certified input is sold as certified output. A supplier without chain of custody certification cannot make a claim that material is from sustainably managed forests. All suppliers in the product value chain need to hold a chain of custody certification. If one link in a product value chain is not certified, then the end user, such as brand owner, would not be able to claim that this material is certified. So this guarantees the traceability. If you go to the next step, I'm mindful of time. So if you are a brand owner, I know we have quite a number here in the room. So if, as a brand owner, how you can benefit from that. So if you buy products with PEFC chain of custody from your Taiwan supplier, what it provides you with a traceability and a third-party verification that on the forest-based material content. This means, as a brand owner, you can make a substantiated claim that forest-based content on a finished garment originates from sustainably managed forest and is PEFC certified. By the way, I wanted to note that applies not only for, of course, for textile, that would be the same for your packaging or any other wood-based materials like store fixtures. How you can communicate that and how you can use those claims, substantiated claims, with an off-product communication on your website, sustainability report, marketing materials, or on your product. So when you communicate directly to your customer in a product description, online, in catalog, on tags, and you can make a step further and actually you will be eligible to place a PEFC certification label on the garments tab. So next slide. Thank you very much. Please welcome your question at the Q&A. Now you have learned more about creating value with sustainable forest management and how PEFC standards contribute to that. And now I invite my colleague, Deepa, to present to you how PEFC is engaging with textiles and apparel sector. She'll give you some more examples, how we collaborate and how you can get involved. Thank you very much. Deepa, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Julia, and welcome to all our participants today. After 25 years in the fashion industry, heading product divisions for various global brands and retailers, I'm really glad to be part of this important work of PEFC to support the fashion industry in this area. So if I can start with my first slide, please, Prina. So I think a good place to start is the drivers of why certification is important for the fashion industry. So first of all, the use of certified material eliminates risk of fibers from unknown sources. So there is a significant reputational risk involved when using fibers from unknown sources, which can be a cause of illegal logging, deforestation, loss of biodiversity, social injustices. And if you consider, as Simone mentioned earlier, that 40 to 50% are from certified sources today, which is not bad, it also means that there's potentially 50% from unknown, possibly high-risk sources. So if you're also looking at volumes, there's significant volume involved. So probably brands we speak to have on average around 5 to 10% of collections made from wood-based fiber. Brands also have robust sustainability targets, as well as increased pressure from stakeholders and retailers. And by this, I mean, of course, brands have their own values and targets, but there is also increased pressure from consumers, investors, board members. We see more and more KPIs linked to sustainability targets. There are also several e-commerce retail platforms that require brands to be transparent with full traceability and hold robust sustainability credentials. At the same time, the importance of transparency, the traceability tool of chain of custody connects forest materials to the final garment, and also provides proof of verified material from responsible sources towards brands, retailers, consumers, and NGOs. Next, please. So we've come across various challenges in the fashion industry. Prerna, maybe you could go one back. Thank you. We want to make them happy after the challenges. So we have come across several challenges, which of course you can see that, and we can support these challenges through our engagement with brand, supply chain, and industry organizations. So first of all, we can help increase awareness of SFM and certification. Brands, of course, are in different stages of the journey, which means also the level of knowledge is very varied. As far as transparency concerned, one of the challenges for the industry is that very often supply chains are not mapped beyond tier 1 and tier 2, and that's something that a lot of brands are working on right now. So we can also help identify if suppliers are certified through our database, or if not, we can share which certified suppliers are available for targeted sourcing. And there is also a limited chain of custody of certified material and suppliers today beyond the fiber stage, which is where collaboration between brands and suppliers to enable certification is really important, as mostly the demand does come from the brands. Next, please. So this also brings with it several opportunities. There is an increased demand for renewable, natural, and biodegradable materials as part of the fiber basket of brands. I'm sure that you're aware that currently MMCF represents around 6.4% of fiber production, and there is a significant increase in expected. So I think you will be able to find some really interesting statistics in the Textile Exchange Fiber and Materials Market Overview if you'd like to know more about that. So there is also an increased industry focus on biodiversity, social standards, and climate change, which align with PEFC certification benefits. I think we've also really noted that SFM and wood-based fibers are very high now on the sustainability agenda for brands and retailers, which in most cases has been preceded by a focus on social and ethical standards, which remains important, moving to preferred cotton and recycled polyester. And now it's definitely MMCF. So we also see that forest certification and sustainable forest management is also increasingly featured in the sustainability commitments of wider initiatives, such as the Fashion Pact and UNFCCC. Besides that, which can really help you move forward immediately, is that major fiber suppliers are already certified by PEFC, and I can name in alphabetical order APR, Ostrocell, Berla, Eastman Naya, Lensing, Metsa Spring, Saturi, Sapi, Shandong Yame, Saiteco, Sodra, Stora Enso, and Xinjiang Zhongtai Textile Group. So apologize for any mispronunciations. And also this helps to increase the consistent supply of certified material at a global scale as well. Next, please. So the role of PEFC in the textile and apparel sector is that we raise awareness of the benefits of sustainable forest management according to robust social, economic, and environmental standards within the context of the fashion industry. And where knowledge gaps exist, we can educate and support on how to source wood-based fiber responsibly. We also help brands eliminate controversial wood sources from their supply chain and support brands in meeting their wider sustainability targets beyond certification, which can include social and environmental standards, biodiversity loss, and carbon footprint. We also have a wide collaboration with different brands, suppliers, textile organizations, and other NGO, and we welcome collaboration from any others that are interested as well. And we support textile organizations with our expertise on SFM and the forestry sector towards mutual goals. So besides other NGOs and other organizations, we are also happy to work at a national level to engage with brands and suppliers. For example, we work together with the TGSD, which is the Textile Manufacturers Association, and we talked about SFM towards their brands and suppliers, for example, as part of a panel at the Istanbul Fashion Conference. And we also held a workshop last year when it was still possible live for 50 to 60 different brand retailers in the UK. Next slide, please. So a few of the collaborations that we've been working with recently, for example, we have a long-term partnership with UNECE and the FAO through the UN Alliance for Sustainable Fashion, where we started with our Forest for Fashion project in around 2016. As you know, we're a member of Textile Exchange, also part of the steering committee on the MMCF roundtable and several other of the initiatives. We are also included in the CFDA Materials Index and Sustainable Sourcing Toolkit, which is the Council Fashion Designers of America. We recently became a member of Sustainable Apparel Coalition, and we're also included in the GOTS Sustainable and Regenerated Fiber Standards, among several others. Next slide, please. So some of the ways that we've been able to support brands and retailers, so for example, with adopting and drafting inclusive, responsible SFM procurement policies with complementary standards. We also supported in the chain of custody certification of a major vertical textile supplier. And here I'm referring to Textile Santanderina, which is a large Spanish supplier working with several global brands. And we help certify them from the spinning stage right through to garment manufacturing. We provide chain of custody, as I mentioned, provide valuable market information on MMCF to brands and suppliers, which you may be able to use, for example, if you need more information for your sustainability reports. We're supporting brands in understanding the role of forests to help mitigate climate change and contributing to carbon footprint targets. And we help brands with lists of certified suppliers so that you can target your increased sourcing of responsible fibers. And we're also currently exploring chain of custody with 2 brands at the moment as well. And we support any other suggestions from you as well, so do contact us. Next slide, please. So these are just a few examples of PEFC certification standards in practice, whether on product descriptions or as part of responsible procurement policy. Next, please. And we've also collaborated with Madrid Fashion Week designer Maria Lafuente for several seasons now, showcasing PEFC certified fabrics from her, excuse me, I'm back, sorry. So Maria Lafuente showcasing PEFC certified fabrics in her runway collections from materials made by Textile Santanderina. Next, please. So this is also really exciting for us. End of last year, we launched our new campaign, which is Fashions Change Forest Day, with images made from cutouts of PEFC certified paper by the artist Sam Pierpoint. So we invite you to take a look. It's a really beautiful video, and it gives you a lot more information about why SFM is important for the fashion industry. And the objective of the campaign is to raise awareness for responsible sourcing of PEFC certified materials and sustainable forest management, to empower companies to have PEFC inclusive responsible sourcing policies, and to explain traceability and the business benefits of PEFC chain of custody certification. Next, please. And we're also really happy to share that we launched our white paper on how sustainable forest management can help the fashion industry reduce its carbon footprint at the same time. And we will post this on the hub as well after the webinar, so that you can all have access to that as well. Next. We also introduced our collaboration roadmap, 5 steps by 2025, for a constructive way to start this process, or wherever you may be in your journey today. So engage with us, contact us. We've had several interactions with brands to find out how and where we can support. And this could even be just to start exchanging on where you are in your journey today, what your next steps could be, and where SFM could fit in. We can support you with goals and targets. So develop a responsible sourcing policy. We can help you with your targets and your policy and any other information you need for sustainable forest management and your responsible sourcing policy, mapping your supply chain. So we can support, again, in identifying certified suppliers in your supply chain with our database, or sharing certified suppliers for your targeted sourcing. Map your supply chain, which is also really important to do in your next steps. 4 would be increasing your responsible sourcing through certification of your supply chain or sourcing from certified suppliers, and collaborate with us through various projects, which could be small-scale forestry projects to support smallholders, support carbon footprint goals, social aspects, and protecting biodiversity. And many others, I'm sure, in the future as well. So next slide. So that was it from our side. And we look forward to hearing from you. So please do feel free to contact Julia and myself, and then we can have another conversation in more detail, and also to see how we can be of support to you as an individual brand or supplier. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Julia and Deepa. And I think it was a very valid combination also of all the collaborations and how products are brought to market, because we have a lot of questions of our audience that address things like the views of buyers and brands and retailers and people working with their supply chain partners. And Julia has already started to answer some in writing. So this is, of course, very valuable for everyone. Also, check out the answers that are provided already in the Q&A box. To address some questions directly to you two, a few questions are really about the logo use and where chain of custody certification is required and not. I think some already can be answered with what Julia provided on how many actors need to be certified. But then there's one question also of what the procedure is to put a logo on the garment. So must brands become a member, or is there a pre-approval of the logo artwork required? So can you very, very briefly, we have more questions, describe what needs to be done to label?
Yes, so for a PEFC logo to appear on the garment, so there are a few elements. So yes, you have to apply for a logo license. That can be directly obtained by a brand owner or by a Tier 1 supplier, so the ones that already provides you with a finished garment. And there is a special label generator that allows you to generate the label that is fully in compliance with the standards. And then there is another part to it. So you have to have proofs that there is a certified content, and the minimum requirement is to have 70% of content that is PEFC certified, and the remaining 30% have to have a PEFC controlled source. So you have to apply a due diligence system. You have to really know your source, who's your suppliers, and to exclude any controversial and risky material. Otherwise, there is always 100% label, which is provides you with a clear blue waters.
Thank you. Another question coming in is about that goes back to the forest schemes. And maybe there is a link on the website, so that would be, of course, the easy answer. When you're talking about umbrella certification for other national systems, Catherine would like to know what certification systems you endorse in Canada, Indonesia, and Brazil. But I'm sure there is also some kind of country list that you can provide.
Absolutely, yes, we can. I'm going to send the link to the chat. It's true that some of the national members would be called PEFC, and then the country name, and some others would have their special national name, and we absolutely respect this, national context. So I will type the link where you can see all the list of all 49 endorsed members and their names.
Thank you, wonderful. Another question on the forest certification scope, or this comes from a manufacturer asking where is the kind of forest to gate all the requirements that you described social and environmental for sustainable managed forest. Where does it end? Like, is that the log? Is that where exactly is the gate?
That's great. Yes, so that would be So the forest management is about actually the management, so not yet the harvesting. And if for the harvesting operation, I think you already would need a chain of custody certification. So it really starts at the early stage.
Perfect. And we again heard about another question on, you said 70% needs to be PEFC certified. What is requested for the other 30%?
So the remaining 30%, if you wish to go to that route, so the remaining has to be from PEFC controlled source. That means that it's not actually from PEFC certified forest, but you have to provide enough evidence that will be also checked by the auditor, that you know the country of origin, who was the supplier, so you eliminate any controversial or potentially risky material that can be mixed together. There is a whole set of criteria, again, in the chain of custody standards.
Excellent. We have a generic question about the sustainability credentials of a MMCF. Maybe in this webinar, of course, we focus on the forest part and the chain of custody that you offer. But in general, what do you see as the sustainability credentials of an MMCF? Let's say pre-spinning stage, so not thinking of the dyeing, the finishing, maybe some prints or other changes to a fabric and a garment, but what is the main strength of an MMCF?
Yes, as I said, of course, there's so many, as you mentioned, there are so many things that depend on other elements. What chemicals do you use? How efficient, how energy efficient are, let's say, the spinning elements. But if we really talk about the sourcing, as you know, so forests, if managed sustainably, all the scientific bodies say that they can be renewed, they can be productive while still deliver ecosystem services. So that means it's a renewable source. That's the first. Second is depending on how clean, and if you keep the fiber clean and not mixed with other fibers, that can be recycled, right? Like a piece of paper packaging can be recycled. So I guess those are the key elements, and this is why wood-based products in general, forest-based products, are included very often into this vision for green economy or bioeconomy, where they provide this alternatives to maybe some non-renewable products.
Okay, and besides that, to add on this, most of the man-made cellulosic fiber suppliers, they also are certified on their credentials on biodegradability and compostability from a fiber point of view. And so we have, let me check. There is one more question about the chain of custody certification. So when the awareness about forest and trees outside of forest certification, and also about PEFC chain of custody, this is engaging actively with fashion brands and retailers. This is about MMCF in India. That's okay. That's a Forest for Fashion campaign. Question: are you working with that initiative from PEFC side, or is that an own initiative?
Yes. So actually, and yes. So we since our so we revise our standards, international standards, and also all the 49 national standards every 5 years. So for continuous improvement, and include different scientific innovations into it. So one of them, our latest standard revision, which was approved in 2018, we've included this trees outside forest. So it's about promoting afforestation. So you look into trees that are not necessarily growing into the areas that are legally defined as forests. And in India, that's a very big case. You have a lot of trees that are grown into areas that are not defined as forests, but they are maybe the main areas. So how do we ensure that they are grown sustainably, that they are part of the landscape? So this is this trees outside forest. And we hope that in India, our national standard soon is going to be endorsed. It's in the process of being developed, and soon that is going to be endorsed. And there will be a vast opportunity, to procure those responsibly grown timber outside of forest areas that are contribute to this agroforestry socioeconomic development. Also, that's very valid for another material, which is rubber. So it's about natural, sustainably grown rubber. So in many cases, again, it's outside of traditional forestry boundaries, but it's still a very important process. So we're also piloting and working on different projects on sustainable rubber that is also very, very valid for the textile sector, for athletic and shoes.
Correct. And I would love to talk more about especially afforestation and reforestation. And also it's great really to see all the country schemes that are under development. I really like to see that map as well. If there is more questions at everyone, please join the Textile Exchange Hub community. This is the place where you can address questions, where you can also find the recordings of our webinars. This is where you can get to know each other. And also you will not miss out on any of our communication. So contact us through the website or also via email if you're not part of the MMCF Hub yet. So this said, I would like to thank you for your time today and for listening and joining us today. And thank you to my wonderful speakers from PEFC. And I hope to see you again on February 23rd when we have the second part of forest certification webinar with our friends from FSC. So have a great rest of the day and bye-bye.
Bye everyone, thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
Thank you to our speakers and thank you for participating in today's webinar. As a friendly reminder, we will be sending out the presentation to all registered participants. That concludes our webinar. Thank you. Goodbye.